Hey, everyone.
You're live, Mayor.
Thank you and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Newington Town Council public hearing of May 5th at 6 p.m. The purpose of this evening's meeting is to review the Town Council's tentative budget for the fiscal year 2020-2021. I'm sorry, if you just bear with me, I'm trying to pull up my production and I'm just having a little bit of an issue. So there we go. Okay, councilors, can you just nod if you're able to see my screen now? Perfect, thank you. All right, so welcome. This is the May 5th public hearing for the Town Council's tentative budget fiscal year 2020-2021. So just so everyone understands our schedule, this evening, as I mentioned, we'll review the tentative budget. On May 12th at 7 p.m., we will have our Newington Town Council regular meeting. There will be some other business on the agenda, but that is the evening that we will first entertain changes to the tentative budget. On May 19th, the Town Council will have a special meeting. The purpose of that meeting will be to adopt the budget and set the mill rate. If there are any other adjustments to the budget, they can be also made on that evening as well. So I'll start by sharing, this is the first page of what we call our budget book. It's a summary of the Town Council budget. I'm just trying to move my screen so I can see better. There we go. So if you'll look, the highlighted area just shows the changes from last year's revised budget over here of 2019-20 to what the town manager proposed and the Town Council has accepted as their proposed budget. As of today, no changes have been made to the town manager's proposed budget. So I'll just review those right now. Under town government operations, you'll see the change from last year's budget is approximately just under $800,000 and an increase of 2.11%. Under the Board of Education operations section, you'll see an increase to last year's budget of $2 million or an increase of 2.67%. If we adopt all of the changes on this page, at the bottom, you'll see our mill rate from last year was 39.45. The town manager and town council proposed budget stands at 39.14 currently, which is a decrease of the mill rate of 0.31 or a decrease of 0.8%. I wanted to go into a 20-year historical perspective just to give everyone some understanding of how our budgets have looked over the last 20 years. Our grand list growth in 20 years shows that our grand list has increased a total of 59%. The consumer price index for the same amount of time has increased by 50.82%. In the last 20 years, an average home assessment in Newington has increased from $95,322 to an increase to $147,000. So you can see that's an increase over 20 years of approximately 54.2%. The Social Security cost of living adjustment over the same 20-year period has risen 43%. So not quite keeping up with some of the other things in our town that have gone up. The salary of a seasoned police officer working for Newington has risen 66%. A heavy truck driver working for Newington has risen 58%. A clerk typist in Newington's salary has risen by approximately 58%. A department head in Newington, 58%. And a school teacher with a master's plus 15 years has risen approximately 57%. So you can see over the 20 years, these are some nice increases that we've experienced, both in our grand list, although I wish it was more, as well as in the other areas. The one outlier here a little bit is the Social Security, which isn't quite keeping up with the rest. So we just have to keep that in mind as well. Now, this page isn't quite as positive, so I'll review some of these changes over the past 20 years as well. The average home taxes have increased in Newington by 112%. The town of Newington's annual budget has gone from up 97% over the past 20 years. Breaking that down, the general government side has gone up approximately 88% increase, and the Board of Education's increase over 20 years has been 110%. The educational cost sharing money that we get from the state of Connecticut has only gone up by 81%. So again, that share of the pie is not keeping up with some of our increases in our annual budget, which means we're relying more on the taxpayers. The Metropolitan District Commission budget has gone up over 151%. That's a huge increase when we're looking at what our residents are getting. The number of general government full-time employees, and this is where I really want to focus on this. The general government side has risen in full-time employees from 164 to 171 employees over a 20-year period. That's an increase of 4% of our staff, where our population in Newington has increased by 7%. So we're really doing a nice job of making sure that we're not increasing staff unnecessarily to keep up with our population. We're doing a nice job of keeping that in check. The Board of Education has increased their full-time employees from 465 to 507, which is an increase of about 9%. The population that the school serves has decreased. So it hit a high in 2005 of 4,600 students, and we're down to about 3,900. Not a huge shift, a few hundred students, about 500-600, but a decrease of 15%. So the staffing has increased by 9%. The student population has decreased. Now, what I will say, being an educator myself, is I understand that some of that really is due to the state mandates. The state requires certain positions and certain curriculum to be covered. And so there are areas of increase in those numbers that really are related to those unfunded state mandates that we talk about so frequently. This screen speaks to our debt. So I wanted to go into this just a little bit so everyone understands. Newington has worked really hard over the last many years, 20 years or so, to make sure that we keep our debt in check. So if you look at this top line where Newington is listed, per capita debt is 433. So essentially what that means is if we were to send out a bill today from the town to each and every resident for $433, we would have no debt. That would be it. That would cover our debt in full. So if you look down at the other towns around us that compare to us in demographics and in population, and we look, the average down at the bottom of those towns altogether is $2,046 per capita debt. So when you compare that to Newington's $433, we really have done a great job of keeping our debt down. But where I want you to focus is over here on that last column where it says mill rate. This mill rate is a couple years old because the data was only available to compare from a couple years ago. So this is from 2018. And our mill rate then was 38.5. And when you compare that, we really are in the upper end of all of these towns comparatively. So we just have to be sure that we're being cautious of where our mill rate is going and making sure that we're affordable to our residents and to businesses that want to come into Newington. When we look at the bottom, the average of all of these towns' mill rate is 35.66. Newington stands in 2018 at 38.5. So you can see that our mill rate is a bit high and our debt is a bit low. We need to figure out how to make that work for us better in the future. So this slide is intended to just show you what our budget is made up of. When we look at our overall budget, we are looking at town government being this blue piece here, stands at 38.374 in the proposed budget that I'm showing you this evening. These other little slices of the pie, we have ELLF, which is Employee Life and Liability Fund, which is $67,000. Our CIP fund, $3,160,000. Our debt service at $2,400,000, almost $500,000. And our MDC at $4,800,000. So those expenditures, those four that I just spoke of, really are serving both sides of the government. If you think of it that way, they serve everyone. So they really serve our town government and our Board of Education and all of our residents. So those really make up a combined slice of the pie. Our Board of Education piece over here, the yellow piece, is the biggest slice of our budget, and it stands as proposed at $76,768,000. So when we look at our town government, that makes up about 30%, and our Board of Education budget makes up approximately 61%. And those other slices are the remainder of the budget. So this slide I thought it was important to show this to people. We talk often about unfunded mandates and how the state and their lack of funding for certain things can really affect us. And we hear more about that oftentimes when our Board of Education is doing their budget presentation, but I thought it was meaningful to show on the town side just one example of how those unfunded things really do affect us, even on the town side as well. So this slide is representative of our grand list analysis. At the top of the page, you'll see the residential piece from 2000 was at 74% of the breakdown of our property tax. And in 2019, it remains at 74%. When you look at commercial, we were at 19% back in 2000. And in 2019, we've made it up to 23%. So a little bit of growth there. Our industrial, however, has dropped from 7% back in 2000 to just 3% in 2019. So these are the two areas we really want to focus on as we move forward in the next year or two, is building up our commercial and industrial folk to help us offset the taxpayer dollar and what we're expecting of our taxpayers to pay toward our annual budget. If you look at the bottom of the slide, you'll see this slide speaks to the manufacturing, machinery, and equipment exemption. So back in 2000, the state of Connecticut decided that they were going to mandate that towns exempt manufacturing machinery and equipment from taxes. So that exemption went into play about 1999 or 2000. I'm not 100% sure. This slide shows it at 2000. I thought it was in the 90s myself. But you'll see that the manufacturing equipment here back in 2000 had a value of $29 million, $29.5 million. The mill rate back then was 28.58. And essentially the state reimbursed us $893,000 back then to cover the cost of that exemption. That was reasonable given that they were expecting us to give that 100% exemption. But when you look over here in 2019, the value of that manufacturing equipment has risen to $97,300,000, which would bring in a tax revenue of $3,809,000 if it were able to be taxed at the same rate that our residents are taxed, at that 39.14 mill rate. What the state decided back in 2010 was they were no longer going to fund that. So they're still mandating that we give that exemption of 100%. So that equipment is not taxed, but the state stopped funding that mandate. So Newington is losing currently $3.8 million on that exemption. So that's just something we need to keep fighting for with our state representatives and see if we can work on either getting them to fund that or to really, consider whether that exemption still continues to make sense now and whether or not towns can afford that. So here's just another general fund budget summary. It's the same page, a little that I showed earlier. And I just wanted to highlight this line here where it says amount to be raised by current taxes. So, we have other ways of getting revenue, but the part of the budget that we are expecting to be paid for by taxes is $102,152,000, and that's down 0.2% from last year's ask. So the amount last year was 102.3 million. This year, the town managers proposed and the town council proposed is at 102.1 million. So a decrease of $183,000. So now for the council to consider moving forward, and these are items that have come to light in the past few weeks since we took on the tentative budget of the town council from the town manager. These are some things that have come to light. These were discussed with the council at our April 25th meeting. We need to consider the decrease in revenue that we will be seeing for both tax collection interest of $150,000 and interest income of $175,000. These are changes that we may want to make in our budget as we move forward over the next couple of weeks. Additionally, an increase for the election department expense lines for printing and binding of $9,450, other contractual services of $25,380, and public notification of $800. These are all expenses that were not anticipated to be in next fiscal year. They're due to the primary being moved from June to August. And so that money will have to be added to, or we should consider moving that money into next year's budget for those items. We can consider as a council a reduction in the police communication department expense line equipment maintenance of $10,200 for the watch guard system, as it shouldn't be funded in that item. It is paid for out of the IT line. We can look to reduce our highway vehicles and equipment department expense line for fuel at $15,000. We were very fortunate recently to renegotiate and lock in at a lower rate for those costs. We are looking to change the $5,000 in donations from the Memorial Day Parade to the town 150th anniversary fund. This is for the council to consider as we deliberate. And just so everyone understands, we're not taking money out of one or the other. The Memorial Day Parade already has an expenditure this year of the $5,000 that they won't be able to use because unfortunately, as you know, the parade had to be canceled because of the COVID crisis. So we're looking to allow that expenditure to happen out of this fiscal year. Next year, instead of putting the $5,000 in and kind of doubling that, we would be putting that money toward the town 150th anniversary fund if the town council sees fit. And then we can disperse the money for the parade this year. They can hold on to it for next year. So again, these are just things for the council to consider. These are things that have come to light since putting together the proposed budget. If all of the changes that I just mentioned were considered by the council and were approved, just so everyone knows where we would be at that point, the adjusted mill rate would be 39.26, which is a slight increase from the original town council tentative budget of 39.14. And based on our average assessment here in Newington, the Newington residents would see a combined reduction for both home and auto of approximately $30.08 based on that average assessment. So in summary, just to go over the total appropriation increase to the budget would be 1.9 million. And this is before those considerations that I just spoke of, because they have not been changed to the budget yet. So this is based on the proposed council budget. Total appropriations would be at $1,969,745, or an increase of 1.6%. The state aid increase is approximately $364,000. And the mill rate would decrease by 0.31% given the current tentative budget. So I hope that helps inform everyone of where we're at on our budget. And now we will move into the public comment section of the meeting. And I believe, let me just pull up, it just takes me a minute to transition here. We have several people joining us. We have approximately 52 attendees. That's awesome to see. We love seeing that the public is paying attention to our budget process. So that's great to see. I see 2 raised hands, I believe. Let me just click on those. And I don't know who this is. The number ends in 640. You can go ahead and state your name and address for the record. You're with the town council.
Hello, my name is Brian Wood of 51 Standard Street. I'm calling in regards to asking for $200,000 to be reestablished to the Parks and Rec Department so they can maintain the pools, parks, and playgrounds at the current levels and bring the Maynard Christian field up to playable conditions. I'm currently involved with the soccer club of Newington since the year 2000 and been coaching many kids over these many, many years. And we have over 100 volunteers that are coaching and working with at least about 650 Newington children. And one of our fields, which is the Emmanuel Christian field, we've had many complaints, and they're just increasing in number each season as the field is very covered with dirt, crabgrass, and grubs. The Parks and Rec Department has been very good this past season while we're not using the fields by aerating it and adding sand, but all that is needed is some consistent water source. And $200,000, if it is reestablished for the Parks and Rec, it'll aid in getting that project completed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. All right, I neglected to review the slide on the screen just for the members of the public that are in attendance. If you do want to speak, please choose the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen. It should pop up. in the participant window. And then if you are calling in by phone, you can do *9, and that would raise your hand so that I know you want to be recognized. We have one more person right now with their hand raised, and the name on the screen is Phil. So go ahead, Phil, you're with us. Phil, I can't hear you. Are you there? Phil, I believe your mic is muted on your end. Are you there? I have my technical assistance guys on the line. James or Paul, do you have any suggestions for me here?
I'm seeing him, showing him as unmuted. I can't see any issues on this side.
Okay.
I don't have any options for him either.
Okay. So Phil, I'm going to move to the next member that has their hand up. We're unable to hear you. I'm not sure what's happening. And I don't know that there's any option on my side. It shows your mic is unmuted. So we'll move on to the next caller at this point. The next caller whose hand is raised, their phone number ends in 012. You can go ahead. You're with the town council. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Mayor Beth. This is Phil Knowlton. Thank you for taking the time, and I'm sorry I'm not that good with the Zoom online
That's okay. Welcome, Phil.
But I do appreciate the, taking the extra effort. I too want to support Parks and Rec Department, and I'm looking to try to get the $200,000 established for the Pools, Parks, and Playgrounds Initiative. This is a perfect time, I think, when all the programs are on hold and people are back home. They'd love to be able to go back to the swimming pools and see them, more improved, and have the general maintenance done to the different playgrounds and parks around town. And inclusive of that is Emmanuel Christian, which they've done a ton of aerating, deep tine, shallow tine. They've put overseeding and also top dressed it with sand. And right now we've got everything set up, hopefully looking to try to get $200,000 established so that they can continue with the great work that they've been doing, not just at Emmanuel Christian, but also throughout the town at Mill Pond Park to try to revamp that. I appreciate what you guys are trying to do at the state level to try to get back tax reimbursements of $673,000. My opinion is currently I think the budget for Parks and Rec Department is 1.6 million overall throughout the year. And comparatively, if you look at, say, Highway Department, you're looking at, I think, closer to 6 million a year, if I'm not mistaken. And so I appreciate taking $15,000 down from the Highway Department, but comparatively to what the budget is, I think it's a drop in the bucket. I think also possibly we could look at the MDC. We're spending 4.8 million on MDC, and say you have 10,000 families in town. I'm just guessing, say there's 30,000 people. You're paying $482 a family per year for MDC. On top of that, I'm paying $1,200 a year for my water bill. So all told, we're paying $1,682 a family for our water when it used to be that we could get a well dug. So I do appreciate it, but I also think that focus needs to be put on some of these areas that do touch the town, but shouldn't be untouchable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knowlton. I see another hand raised, and the identifier on the screen says Stacy Michaud. You're with us. If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Stacy Michaud. I live at 105 Stonehenge Drive. I'm calling tonight to ask for support for the Board of Education budget at the original proposed increase of 3.46. I speak from two roles tonight. One as a teacher and one as a parent. I actually had the distinct honor of standing in front of the town council this past fall as I received the 2020 Newington Teacher of the Year proclamation. And at that time, I expressed how grateful I was to the town council for the support that you have shown to education. I'm here again a few months later to ask you to continue that support by approving the proposed budget increase of 3.46. I feel even more passionate about this request after witnessing and being a part of the distance learning efforts shown by the teachers, the parents, the staff, and the administrators in this town. It's been more than obvious that education is very valued in Newington. And distance learning right now wouldn't have even been possible without all of the technological initiatives that have been supported in the former Board of Education budgets. The demands on schools are great. They might even get greater come the fall. And that burden will only become heavier if positions are eliminated, if class size is increased, or resources are cut. So, and as you mentioned earlier, meeting federal initiatives are a must as well. So passing the proposed budget ensures that we can meet the needs of all students. Along with being a teacher in town, also a resident. My husband and I relocated to Newington from a neighboring town because of the community and the school system. From outstanding educators, ample resources, and strong programs, including the sports and the music department, my own children are thriving in this educational system. And it's crucial for us to invest in our future. So, the past year's increases to education have been minimal, and it's time to move us forward now instead of just maintaining. I know these are challenging times, but it's not time to cut. That's only going to set us back further. Your job is to make decisions for the town, and there's much to consider. I hope that you will stand up for the students in Newington and vote to increase at the 3.46%. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Michaud. Our next caller's caller ID says Catherine Donahue. You're on the air. Please state your name and address for the record. Yep, there you are. Catherine Donahue, are you there? I don't know if that's you, but that's what the caller ID says.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go right ahead and state your name and address for the record.
Catherine Donahue, 212 Robin Brook Drive in Newington. I have the benefit of being a town resident and a teacher at John Wallace Middle School. And I'm also calling in support of the Board of Education 3.46 budget increase. And I know you addressed a little bit earlier about the unfunded mandates by the government. And I do recognize that we have some areas where we are not funded and the mandates are already there, like our 2 preschool teachers, and there are new graduation requirements that are going into place, and there we don't have the funding to make those happen the way that the state is asking them to be done. I appreciate all the things that you have supported so far with the budget, but I would like to see the 3.46 budget go forward.
Thank you, Ms. Donahue. Okay, the next person in line to speak, the phone number ends with 3. Hold on a minute. Okay, it's Forrest Helvey. You're with us. Please state your name and address for the record. We're not hearing you. Ending in 322.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go right ahead.
Okay, great. This is Forrest Helvey at 282 Lamplighter Lane. I just want to go ahead and speak in favor of the Board of Education budget. First, I understand the significant budgetary concerns right now, given the amount of uncertainty that we're looking at. But one of the things that I am looking at as an educator will be the significant differences in what the fall is going to look like. And with potential for social distancing in classes, the need for significant reduction in people in the classrooms, reduction of staff, reduction of teachers, I don't know how we could possibly make that happen. I understand funding the budget right now might feel like a lot more than we can afford at the moment, but in terms of the long run, I really worry about how much more we're going to pay for this. So if I'm thinking about our budget from a fiscally conservative perspective, I would rather pay a little bit now versus paying a lot later. So again, I know that it's a hard decision, but really want to go ahead and thank you in advance for supporting our Board of Education, our teachers, and our staff with all the amazing work they've been doing.
Thank you, Mr. Helvey. The next caller ID says Jonas Roberts. You can go ahead and state your name and address for the record, please.
Jonas Roberts, 6 Pfister Drive. I am not only a town resident, but I'm also a teacher at Anna Reynolds. I teach 3rd grade. I'd like to first thank you and the council for your service to our town. I know it's not an easy job or decision to make. I am speaking on behalf of Dr. Brummett's budget and asking you to fully fund the 3.46 budget. I agree with all the people who've spoken before me. I think my children are on the older side. I have a child in 8th grade at Wallace, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade at the high school. They've had a wonderful experience here in Newington, and I think by fully funding the budget, we are not only helping our children today, but we are really investing in the future of our town. I likewise moved to Newington for the school system. I also moved to teach in the school system. I lived and taught in Meriden before coming to Newington. I think that has been a big selling point that keeps our property values up and keeps people moving here. I've heard that from many of the families in my classroom that they did everything they could to make ends meet so they can move and have their kids attend school in Newington. So I think having a strong education system and fully adopting the budget not only helps our citizens today, but it does invest in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. All right, the next caller ID the number ends in 322.
Hi, Mayor Beth.
Yes, hello, welcome.
It's Billy de Blasio, 68 Harold Drive, Newington. I'm just calling to kind of reiterate what Mr. Woods and Mr. Knowlton said. I've been on the Park and Rec Commission for quite some time and seen a lot of progress throughout the years with the town, and good working relationship with the schools and the Board of Education and the town. And what we're doing as a town is really well with parks, pools, playgrounds, and I'm just looking to see if you guys would consider reinstating the original $200,000 to supplement our budget and keep things going in the right way moving forward, especially with the times that we're facing. And when social distancing eases up a bit, all those facilities are going to take a lot of extra hit and a lot of extra work, and they're going to get frequented even more. So that's the gist of my call, and I hope you guys will consider that. And thank you for everything, and your presentation earlier was very informative. I enjoyed that.
Thank you, Mr. de Blasio.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Our next caller, hold on one second, the hand just disappeared. I'm looking for it. Okay, the next caller, the phone number ends in 396. You can go ahead and state your name and address for the record.
Yes, hi, this is Tracy Pinglelore at 44 Cinnamon Road. I'm also calling to reestablish the $200,000 for Parks and Rec so they can maintain the pools and playgrounds, and also to bring the Emmanuel Christian Fields up to playable conditions. I am the junior rec director for the soccer club of Newington, and just about all of the teams that I support through the soccer club play at Emmanuel Christian, and we hear complaints all the time about the fields, and it's been great seeing the work that Parks and Rec has done so far, and we really would like to see that final step to have the irrigation so that all of that work, isn't lost, and that we can really get those fields up and going, and potentially to add some additional fields to that space. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Okay, I'll just give it one more minute. I don't see any, oh, there is another raised hand just popped up for me. Hold on. This is the number ending in 070. You're with the town council. If you would state your name and address for the record.
Hi, this is Rose Lyons, 46 Elton Drive.
Hi, Ms. Lyons.
Good evening. I no longer have any children, a child in Newington school system, but I went through the school system. My daughter did as well. I have no children or grandchildren attending any of the Parks and Rec programs. I am a 74-year-old senior who has lived in Newington most of my life since I was 2 years old. So I'm not here to lobby for the school or for Parks and Rec. I'm here to lobby for our leaf pickup. Thought I'd add a little levity to your meeting tonight. On a serious note, I've been watching for 10 years very closely the budget, and in particular, the CIP budget. Over those 10 years, I have watched parks, pools, and playgrounds maintenance budgets of $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, not often $300,000, let me state that. I've watched as the turf field was built. I'm watching now as money is being put aside to pay for the turf field to be replaced. Several years back, I asked Mayor Woods to ask Superintendent Till for a breakdown of the monies that were spent in maintenance of the parks, pools, and playgrounds. Never did see that. I've listened to presentations on a $19 million renovation to Churchill Park, a $12 million proposed renovation to Mill Pond Park. I've watched as the two gym lobby got the two gyms in our town hall, and in looking at it as I went by today, I have to tend to agree it looks like a big recreation center with some offices attached. That being said, I would like to put my support behind the education budget. I think that this is the time that we've got to take care of our children. They've been home now, and it's going to be a big transition for them come September. As far as recreation, we don't know whether or not we're going to be allowed to be into those pools. And from what I've heard for the last 5 years, the pools aren't in the greatest of shape. So maybe now is the time to think about renovating the schools, renovating, cleaning up the pools and the parks, and put some emphasis on education, and in particular, Anna Reynolds and the renovations that have been put off for years and years to that school. Thank you once again. I know it's a tough job. I appreciate the fact that you're working hard to keep things lower for all of us. And stay safe, stay well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lyons. Okay. I'm looking at our attendees. Right now we have 53 attendees. I don't see any raised hands. So if there's any member of the public that would still like to speak, please use the raise hand function in the participants box at the bottom of your screen if you'd like to be acknowledged. We'll give it just one more minute. And if you're calling in on your phone, it's *9 to raise your hand. Okay, folks, I don't see any more public participation or public comment. So we will go ahead and we will end our public hearing at 6:38. We do have our special meeting beginning at 7 p.m. There is a different login, so please make sure you join us if you'd like to for that meeting. At 7 p.m. we will reconvene. Thank you, everyone.